What if I told you that the entire story of the modern world, we're talking empires rising and falling, world wars, the birth of brand new nations, could all be told through the history of just one single army regiment? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today.
It sounds a little crazy, right? But the journey of the 93rd Burma Infantry does just that. As its name changes, as its soldiers change, as its very allegiances change, it becomes this incredible mirror, reflecting the huge tides of history. So, let's start this story at the very beginning.
Now, you might think our story begins in Burma, given the name, but nope, it actually starts way back at the beginning of the 19th century in South India, under the control of the British East India Company.
Okay, so picture this. New Year's Day, 1800. The unit is officially born. It's raised by a Colonel George Wahab, and it quickly gets this informal nickname, Wahab Ki Paltan. Paltan is just the Hindi word for battalion. And its very first soldiers, they were all drawn from the local Madras region. So you had Muslims, Tamils, and Telugus serving side by side.
So for the next 90 years or so, this regiment served all across India. But then, in 1890, something happens. It undergoes this absolutely radical transformation that sets it on a completely new path.
I mean, those first 9 decades were packed with action. You've got the Travancore War, and then the massive Indian Rebellion of 1857. And that rebellion, well, it would change everything for the British in India. And as a result, in 1890, this regiment was about to be completely reinvented.
And when I say reinvented, I mean a total reinvention. The original South Indian troops were gone. In their place, the British recruited what they called martial races from the north. We're talking Punjabi Muslims, Pathans, and Sikhs. Now, this was a very deliberate colonial policy, and this new unit was then relocated to police the recently conquered territory of Burma.
A few years later, the British Indian Army goes through this massive reorganization, led by Lord Kitchener, and that's when our unit gets its formal title. The name it would become famous under, the 93rd Burma Infantry, was now official.
All right, so this is where the regiment's story blows up from a regional one to a truly global one. The First World War was about to test the 93rd like never before and take them thousands and thousands of miles from home. When war broke out in 1914, the 93rd was shipped out almost immediately. And their first mission? It was absolutely critical, defending the Suez Canal, the lifeline of the British Empire, from the advancing forces of the Ottoman Empire.
From the sands of Egypt, their next stop couldn't have been more different. It was a world away, the infamous mud and trenches of the Western Front. Here, they fought right alongside British, French, and other colonial troops in one of the deadliest environments in all of human history.
After France, the regiment was sent to Mesopotamia, which is modern-day Iraq. They were thrown right into the brutal campaign to try and relieve the British garrison that was besieged at Kut al-Amara. This was just a long, savage fight along the Tigris River.
And the fighting there was just incredibly intense. Names like Dujaila Redoubt and Beit Isa, they might be forgotten to a lot of us now, but they were the sites of ferocious, bloody battles. Official records even note that the 93rd fought with great gallantry all throughout this punishing campaign.
But all of that gallantry, it came at a staggering cost. During the war, the 93rd Burma Infantry suffered 1,157 casualties. 235 men were killed. That is an absolutely enormous sacrifice for a single battalion.
So the world was a completely different place after 1918, and the British Indian Army was no exception. For the survivors of the 93rd, another major identity shift was just over the horizon.
Yep, in 1922, another round of army reforms saw all those old regimental numbers disappear. The 93rd Burma Infantry was grouped together with other Punjabi regiments, and it officially became the 5th Battalion of the new 8th Punjab Regiment.
And then, in 1947, came the seismic event of partition. As the British Empire finally withdrew from India, its massive army was split between the two new nations of India and Pakistan. And because of its largely Muslim composition, the 8th Punjab Regiment was allocated to the new Pakistan Army. Just like that, it had a new flag and a brand new allegiance.
So where does that leave our regiment? Well, its journey didn't just end in 1947. The thread of its history actually continues right up to the present day.
In 1956, there was another reorganization, this time within the Pakistani Army. The 8th Punjab Regiment was merged into the Baloch Regiment. And with that, the lineage of the old 93rd found its modern home.
It continues to serve today as the 5th Battalion, the Baloch Regiment, an active unit in the Pakistani Army.
I mean, just look at this. The entire 200-plus-year journey is right there, reflected in its changing names. It went from a South Indian unit of the East India Company to a Burma-based battalion of the British Raj, and finally, to an esteemed battalion in the modern Pakistan Army. What a story.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? The next time you see the name of an old institution or a building or even a street, just remember the 93rd Burma Infantry. There is often a whole world of history, of conflict, and incredible change hiding just beneath the surface.